internal injuries, and even death. Irritants are often diluted forms of corrosive substances, such as ammonia, antifreeze, thinners, degreasers, and acids. Other irritants are byproducts generated during combustion, such as nitrogen dioxide found in automobile exhaust. Unlike corrosives, irritants generally cause only minor temporary inflammation or swelling at the point of contact. Flammables and combustibles are another common group of hazardous chemicals, from the gasoline that runs your car to the kerosene used in space heaters, from acetylene used for welding to toluene in paints and adhesives. But which are flammable and which are combustible, and what is the difference? The key to telling whether a chemical is flammable or combustible is its flash point. This is the temperature at which the chemical releases vapors that can ignite and burn. Remember, it's not the flammable or combustible liquid that burns, it's the vapor. Liquids that have a flash point less than 100 degrees Fahrenheit are considered flammable. Gasoline, for example, has a flash point of minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it's almost always giving off vapors that can burn. To be considered combustible, a liquid must have a flash point between 100 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Combustibles, like kerosene, are much easier to control because they usually have to be heated up before they'll produce burnable vapors. Liquid fuels aren't the only flammables and combustibles we have to watch out for. Did you know that smoking near an open can of paint or bottle of rubbing alcohol could cause a fire? These and many other materials can also ignite easily. Flammable gases such as hydrogen, methane, propane, butane, and acetylene come with their own unique set of hazards. These and other gases are usually stored in compressed gas cylinders. The pressure inside these containers is enormous. The rupture of a cylinder or valve can cause a sudden, violent release of that pressure. The container or valve may even become a flying projectile. Another group of hazardous chemicals we need to be aware of are carcinogens and suspected carcinogens. As you may know, these chemicals are often linked to cancer. Normally, the cells in the human body follow a pattern to reproduce and grow. Carcinogens can disrupt this pattern, causing cells to grow abnormally, which is why cancer is often fatal. Although carcinogens can affect nearly all areas of the body, they most frequently target specific organs, such as the lungs, liver, kidneys, and the reproductive system. Unfortunately, there aren't usually any immediate symptoms of exposure to these substances. This is why it is extremely important to know about any carcinogens you may encounter. One carcinogen that has drawn a lot of attention recently is asbestos. At one time, asbestos was used in pipe insulation, floor tiles, and fireproofing materials. Automotive brake and clutch linings also contain asbestos. When inhaled, microscopic asbestos fibers can damage the delicate tissue inside the lungs and eventually cause cancer. Suspected carcinogens are commonly believed to increase your chances of getting cancer, but unlike confirmed carcinogens, no direct link has been established yet. Formaldehyde, PCBs, and carbon tetrachloride are examples of suspected carcinogens. There is more to preventing cancer than simply avoiding exposure to carcinogens. There are risk factors that affect your chances of getting cancer. Smoking, for example, has been proven to increase your chances of getting cancer by tens or even hundreds of times. Quitting is the biggest step a smoker can take towards preventing cancer. Another potential workplace hazard you need to be aware of is radiation. While radiation is not usually associated with chemicals, it can cause serious damage to your body's cells and tissues, much like a carcinogen. This group of hazards includes infrared radiation, ultraviolet or UV radiation, X-rays, gamma rays, and other forms of radiation. If you work around radiation hazards, you will need to take steps to protect yourself. Talk to your supervisor to find out more about any radiation hazards that may exist in your workplace. Hazard communication goes beyond simply exercising your right to know. You need to take the process further and act on what you've learned about the potential hazards of your job. This starts with selecting and using the appropriate personal protective equipment, from goggles and face shields to gloves and acid suits. Respiratory protection is especially important when working around many hazardous materials. There are many different kinds of respirators, and it's vital that you use the right kind for the job. It's also very important to make sure that the respirator fits properly. Storage conditions for hazardous chemicals also require some special consideration, such as proper ventilation in case of fumes, adequate lighting for reading labels, identification of storage locations, strong, stable shelving, safe and easy access to reduce the chances of an accident. Small quantities of flammables or combustibles should be stored in UL-approved cans with spring-loaded caps to contain vapors and prevent spills. Larger quantities of paints, solvents, or other flammables need to be stored in approved flammable materials cabinets. Compressed gas cylinders also have special storage considerations. They must be stored upright with a safety cap in place over the valve. A safety chain or bracket is required to prevent the cylinder from falling over. In exposure situations, you need to act quickly to minimize the damage that a hazardous material can cause. Always know the nearest location of running water, because it's usually your first line of defense against chemical injuries. For small splashes, immerse the affected area in running water for at least 15 minutes. For larger exposures, get to a safety shower as quickly as possible. Remove contaminated clothing and stay in the shower stream for at least 15 minutes. Getting chemicals in your eyes can cause severe damage, so you need to go to an eye wash station immediately. Keep your eyes open and flush them for at least 15 minutes. Inhaling hazardous materials can be dangerous, even deadly. If someone is overcome by fumes, get them out of the area and into some fresh air. Check the container label, or MSDS, to see if they may need immediate medical attention. Swallowing a hazardous substance is extremely dangerous. If this occurs, consult the MSDS immediately. It may be necessary to dilute the chemical with water or milk, or induce vomiting. However, in some cases, vomiting may cause more damage. Seek medical attention after any exposure to a hazardous material, no matter how minor it may seem. Some chemicals have delayed or long-term effects, so be sure to supply medical personnel with a copy of the MSDS. In the event of a leak or a spill of a hazardous chemical, you must act quickly. The first concern is people's health and safety. Tend to injuries immediately. Evacuate the area if necessary, and notify the appropriate personnel. If the spill is of a flammable or combustible substance, you should immediately remove sources of heat or ignition. But don't unplug machinery or equipment. Doing so could cause sparks. If you're going to be involved in cleaning up a hazardous spill, make sure to use the proper PPE and cleanup equipment. Check the MSDS or your company's hazard communication plan. First, you must work to contain the spill and minimize contamination. Create a barrier around the spill with an absorbent material. If your facility has a cleanup kit, use it. In most cases, you'll need to absorb the spill with a neutral material. But spills of some substances require special procedures. For example, you must use non-sparking tools when cleaning up a flammable substance. And it's important to remember that you can't just throw hazardous materials into the trash. Many chemicals are classified as regulated waste and must be removed by licensed disposal companies. Check with your supervisor or your facility's safety manager. OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard and other right-to-know laws are there to get us the information we need. But only you can take the steps necessary to protect yourself from hazardous chemicals.